Akhetaten's Gates, Chapter 30. Troll nurse wrapped my baby in swaddling clothes and held her out to me. I looked away and began to cry. Akhenaten gasped and wiped my face as troll nurse looked at the baby with a bit of confusion. Nefertiti. No, don't do that, T chimed in. She's a beautiful baby. It's all right, Akhenaten assured. You should be happy. I'm very happy. I refused to look at them. I felt shamed and defeated. I hadn't the courage or spine to look upon my baby or the face of my husband. I was a poor queen. I was such a disgrace as a great royal wife. What was so great about me? I couldn't do what Egypt wanted their queen to do. What was wrong with me? This wasn't fair. Mother? Akhenaten turned to T, hoping that she could provide him with some infinite words of wisdom. Akhenaten, why don't you take the baby? He seemed rather unsure of this advice, but did as he was told, taking the baby girl from troll nurse and cradling her close to him. You are beautiful, I heard him say. You are a glowing twin to Neferneferutin. Similar should be your name. Neferneferura. He peered up at me. I'm happy, Nefertiti. I wanted another child. Will you not love her just as much as the others? I want to go to my chambers, I said quietly, almost shamefully. Neferneferura. Exquisite beauty of Ra. But why did it have to be so, Aten? Why Neferneferure? Why not Sminkare? I turned my head to face one of my handmaidens. Help me to my chambers. What about our baby? Akhenaten asked, clearly very confused. Give her to a wet nurse. I want to be left alone. Mother? It's all right, T soothed. It happens sometimes. That's one reason why we have wet nurses. Just give her a little time alone to think things over. I sat at my vanity table, looking over my vast collection of makeup. I chose not to look at my face in the shining copper mirror. I felt awful, even to the point of feeling I was worthy to only dress down for my position. I was wearing a simple white dress. There were no frills, no jewels, nothing to indicate that I was a woman of the highest rank in Egypt. I had chosen to take a bath, hoping being clean would in turn clear my mind. My hair was a wet mess, and I felt as though my mind was in no better a condition. So there I sat, resembling the poorest of commoners. But even in such despair, it was impossible to consider me ugly. This was how I was to begin with, wasn't I? I had won him plain. His heart came to me when I was plain. I threw a box of makeup at the wall. I gave my hair a tug as I let out a cry of frustration. I could only feel no better duty than to hide my face from the world as I put my head down on my hands. Moments later, I heard my chamber door open and the sound of gentle footsteps entering. I took for granted that it had to obviously be my husband, venturing now after me to comfort me. I didn't want to face him. I was just too ashamed to face him. But as always, I felt a strange sense of comfort in knowing that he was there for me. I peered up, finally chancing to glance into the mirror. I scowled, finding that the reflection with me was not that of my husband, but that of my father I. You! What is this you business? I replied, crossing his arms. Tell me, child, is there something wrong with you? Why must you be so difficult? And what sort of question is that supposed to be? I asked him. I was summoned not too long ago because my daughter was giving birth. But yet again, you have merely wasted my time. Princesses and more princesses. I don't understand it. It is no wonder that your husband is finally agreeing to a new queen. Perhaps she will prove far more capable of producing a son and heir, of which my daughter has failed to do. You always were the troublesome one. Leah would have had a son right away. No fooling around. She was primed to be a politician's wife and knew very well the importance of producing sons for her husband. She would not have wasted time with this female folly, and would have been swift to complete her duties in appropriate haste, giving Egypt an heir, and even multiple sons to ensure her command of the future of the throne. Only then would she have toyed with the notion of having daughters. But Leah was always a girl who knew her sense of duty. She may have found it of no political gain at all to produce daughters, and would have produced only sons, of which Tutmose could choose at his leisure to follow in his regal lineage. What do you have to say for yourself? Why don't you go pull Leah from whatever tomb she is in, if not the bottom of the Nile River, to do so then? I spat. The gender of the child is not of my choosing. If it were, I assure you that a son would have been born to me by now. Even I desire a prince more than anything now. It would have proven the most beneficial, and yet this is not something that I have any control over. I do not have my son, and it is not for my lack of desire and prayers. Do you honestly believe I would dally when the fate of my marriage's sanctity is in jeopardy? Do you think I want to share Akhetaten with some girl? Some mere child? You are a foolish old man, and I grow tired of you. You may have sired me, but you are still of a lower rank. You are but a noble and a military general. No prince to speak. I am queen, and demand that kind of respect. What it is you want, Nefertiti, is an equal say-so to that of Akhetaten, I replied. How much influence do you hold over your king? I hold plenty. He wouldn't even be what he is today if not for me to be his backbone besides his mother. He gave me a wicked grin. Then, perhaps you are not a total loss after all. Tell Akhenaten to leave Akhetaten. What? I gasped. Why would I do something like that? You are not blind, Nefertiti. You know as well as anyone that he grows unpopular, leaving himself, as well as you, to be compared to silly baboons. What sort of royal respect is that? The gods are angry. Aten has obviously failed you, and Amun grows impatient. Perhaps, if you go back now, he will forgive you for your delusions and make it all better. Save Akhenaten's dignity by leading him back to Luxor or Memphis. Will he not follow you? Does he not always seek the approval of his beloved queen? If you are indeed his backbone, then he cannot live confidently without you by his side, and will go wherever you go to obtain what it is he would lose. You say that he loves you for you, and would even without all of this glam and glitter. He would drop all of this to return to his most beloved, would he not? Do it, Nefertiti, and restore some sense of sanity to the lands of Egypt. I lowered my gaze. I'm sorry. I can't do that, I still love him. I never said you didn't. I believe in him. I want to be a proper wife and support him. I cannot say that Akhetaten should be a distant memory, destined to be forgotten. I cannot say Aten speaks not true, and stands as a myth. It will not be these things of which I tell him, for I am not a weak, passive, and cowardly queen. It is Luxor that will be a memory, as also the palace in Memphis. These places are vacant of the royal grace, and shall remain so. Luxor and Memphis will stand glorious long after the fall of Akhetaten, as it has done for the centuries preceding it. Amun will pick up Egypt and kiss its wounds where Aten drops it. I looked away with a rather indignant, "Humph." Perhaps as cold and betraying as his words were, he was trying to look out for us. With no successful king, there would be no successful person to work for, thereby making him less of a man he stood as currently. Perhaps he was trying to help, but his words were not pleasing. Little did he realize that Akhenaten had come in shortly after him, standing just within the doorway, with tea standing in it. He had witnessed these words, which came to him as both a sense of hypocrisy and mutiny. I will not restore Memphis. I will not restore Luxor. This startled I, spinning him around and dropping him to grovel at Akhenaten's feet. I will not restore Amenhotep's religion or traditions. Why would I? They have done me no good. I will never do such a thing. Neither shall my queen say for me to behold a new place to erect Akhetaten. I will not budge. I will say unto her that I would never abandon Akhetaten to build this new good place of her findings. I will not. This city is a gift to me, my family, and my people from the generous hands of Aten, in which we are to give it thanks and receive blessings from its generous fingers. Memphis, Luxor, they are gone, Akhetaten is now the center, the very heart of Egypt, and so it shall remain so long as I am in power, and so long as my descendants are in power. I bowed humbly, pleading now for forgiveness. He touched his forehead to the floor and kissed the ground at Akhenaten's feet, continuing to grovel in this pathetic manner. The disgust was obvious on Akhenaten's face, and he dutifully dismissed him. No more coaxing was needed, and my father made a swift exit past my husband and beneath the arms of Queen T. I had expected for him to rush to me, pity me, sympathize, and whisk me up into his arms to lavish attention all over me. But that is not what happened. His almond eyes narrowed into small slits, and his usual mysterious smile was now a discordant frown. It frightened me for him to look upon me in this manner. For some reason, I felt the need to shield my face as he approached. Would you honestly think to betray me in that way, Nefertiti? How could you think of such a thing? I blasted out. Had you not listened to me at all? You know now, and should know by now, that my devotion has always lain with you. You are my everything, he replied with an angry sigh. Was it that he did not believe the words to him of which I spoke? Was he really falling to be so jaded now? He turned his back to me, turning up his nose in a manner to show his superiority over me. It was a bad idea, not because it hurt my feelings and pride, but because it made him unable to see where he was going. He began to march off in his exit, only to plow right into T, whom he was surprised to find still in the doorway, and was perhaps never aware that she had been there in the first place. "Stop," she said to him flatly, in one of those angry mother tones. "Turn around and apologize to her right now." "What am I to apologize for?" he spat. She went wide-eyed a moment, her eyes flashing a multitude of crazy colors before she narrowed them, almost as if they were serpents in coil about to spring forth from her eyes to bite at this man who was her son. "You are acting childish, Akhenaten. You have this stubborn, I'm never wrong attitude, and you have inherited it from your father. So stubborn." He quickly covered his ears and wrinkled his once smooth and slender face. Well, so much for proving his maturity. "I am nothing like Amenhotep. He is dead. It all died with him. I am Akhenaten. I am the individual. I am the figure. I am the holy. I am pissing me off," T cried out like an angry harpy. She raised her hand and slapped Akhenaten across the cheeks. It stunned him, and he brought a hand to the strike, feeling the hot, red mark that she had left behind on his face. "Dare not talk down on your father, or on me, boy. I don't care if you are my son, a prince, a king, or even an almighty god. You are of my loins. From within me came your creation, and within my temple you grew. Know that you will always stand, therefore, beneath me. How dare you shame yourself to the level of cow dung? You are making me sick with all the bullshit you are feeding me. Amenhotep most certainly had his faults. He was a human being, living for his kingdom, as you are now. Without him, you wouldn't even exist. Your habits are shameful. You build up frustration after frustration until they bloat you and pull at your seams. And you take them out in a violent verbal rage when the last little bit makes you burst. You now take it out on her?" She pointed to me. "Did you not come here to comfort her? This woman, not even 2 hours ago, gave birth to your child. Is this how you wish to treat the passion of your life? The center of your universe?" Akhenaten had to take a step back. Rarely had he ever been the sole focus of the rage bestowed by his mother. Those few times that he had, they paled in comparison to this time. She scowled at him like a wicked witch. He peered over to me, as though he were a confused and lost child, hoping I would give him some sort of direction. It was obvious that he was beginning to come to his senses again. There hung several moments of a cold, hard silence. Finally, he approached me slowly, cautiously, taking my hand and slowly closing the distance between us until he was able to embrace me. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I sniffled in response, resting my cheek on his bony collarbone. "Don't be angry with me, Akhetaten," I pleaded. "Don't speak," he replied. "Be silent now, and just hold me. Let me feel your heartbeat and hear your breath. Let me remember that you are my life." This was a heavy, euphoric nostalgia. It hung low, but that was just enough. It was a moment that I never wanted to let go. And I didn't want to let him go. I wanted it to be just like this, even if it meant I would be silent forever. He was my beloved, my husband, my Akhetaten. There is a positive and negative side to all things. This is what I've come to learn from what they say and from my own experience, the prominence of which is of always constant debate. Such was always the way when Akhetaten took time to reflect on his life and the decisions he made during that life. On the one hand, it brought back many wonderful memories. On the other, it could be sad to realize just how much we missed them and how damn old we were getting. This time was no different. Nostalgia hit Akhetaten hard, and he had migrated to the roof of the palace, bringing with him a cushioned seat. And his wife, of course. It would never truly seem right otherwise. I sat on his lap, resting peacefully against his chest. We were enjoying the extended moment of silence. It was peaceful, and we didn't want anything to disturb that. Between the nursemaids, T, Hara, and the aging Tepi, the girls were kept well occupied. That was quite an array in our zoo tribe, if you ask me. It consisted now of an 8-year-old Meridaten, 6-year-old Mekadaten, 3-year-old Akhetaten, 1-year-old Neferneferutin, and 6-week-old Neferneferura. Ew. I was just getting too old. That wasn't right at all. It kind of sucked, really. Well, all right, let's be real about it. I was actually only 24 years old. My husband reaching 25. By modern standards, we would be just starting our lives. But let's look at things in an ancient perspective, shall we? We were in the prime of life, and pushing 30 was a sign of old age to many Egyptians. Frankly, I'd take to being considered a young fox any day. Our family of ducklings, so to speak, began to diverge. My eldest daughters already had their own personalities, and quarreled to some degree to decide which of the personalities were the strongest. Order of birth, so far, had remained the order of dominance. However, the older they got, the more driven they were to become as individual as possible. Meridaten was quite boyish in her tongue and mannerisms a lot of the time. Every time she would spout out something of that sort, I could almost see a mini T within her. She was, no question, the most independent of them all. Akhetaten was still the shyer of the group, taking great delight in schooling and in painting. I could see the budding puppy-love crush developing in her for the kind young Hara. As for Akhetaten, she was certainly the loudest of the vocalists, but seemed rather distant from their follies. She would follow them, only to make her own amusement and virtually ignore their company. She always seemed lost in thought. I could only grow great curiosity into the kind of woman that she would become. The bottom line was that she was not as pushy as Meridaten, nor as timid as Mekadaten, but certainly louder than both. The 3 eldest were perfectly capable of participating in the worship of Aten, which their father would often insist upon. As we gave our praise and offerings to the great god, the girls would dance and create music with their sistra to please it. This, of course, left Neferneferutin and Neferneferura, Neferatan and Neferra, or Nefer1 and Nefer2, being how I sometimes had to refer to them, as I would stumble over their names. These 2, being the youngest, had little involvement in the temple, and had no lessons to speak of. What seemed most a sign of our growing places in political roles, wet nurses saw the young princesses most. Of course, they were all special in their own way to me. But does not every mother feel this for her children? Political matters, despite taking plenty of time, did not dampen the pleasures of my princesses. Their father and grandmother were always up to spoiling them when they found any opportunity to do so. Grandfather I, on the other hand, chose to have as little to do with them as possible. I knew well to expect nothing else from him, as he would be that way until I bore Egypt a son. He would refuse to see them. Akhenaten, I finally said, after such a long silence. He was too relaxed to say anything in return, but he did peer down at me, taking his eyes off the setting Aten. Where do we go from here? Of that I'm not exactly sure. Does Aten not tell you? I am afraid, like to you, it does not tell me everything. I am not all-knowing. Even I am dangling from strings helplessly, like a marionette in its hands. Does it tell you anything? No, I replied. Aten has not spoken to me since it brought me to Memphis when I was 10. That was almost 15 years ago. Where did the time go? Where do you want it to go? He asked. It was such a bold question, one I had not really expected him to ask. I don't know, I replied. My moment of serenity changed suddenly, and I crinkled up my face. When is that wench coming? I know you are displeased, Nefertiti. But please, don't be so rude. If she is to come, it will be in 4 years that you will see her upon our doorstep. Do you realize that she will be only a child? She'll be 12, the same age as our firstborn. I would be old enough to be her father. She would be like Merodach's twin. He frowned. She will be born of a faraway place and plopped into a palace that she has never seen before, in a country that she has never known. She may very well be lonely and frightened. A girl so young. She would be sent to a strange land to marry a man twice her age, of whom she has never met. She would be expected then to bed with this man, at his command, and bear him a child. How would you feel? Aside from the foreign and age aspect, that was the life that Leah was destined for. And for me. We were lucky, and we knew ahead of time about each other. Our regal meeting was only after a previous, more common one. I did not see a prince, but a friend whom I came to love. But I suppose I see your point. She may be a nice girl, Akhenaten suggested. I would hate for such malice to ferment in my palace. Perhaps instead you could take her under your wing. Perhaps you two could be friends. A stranger like her might be able to use some. Even if the worst came, and she bore me a son, is it truly her fault to be used as a political pawn? Can we be at peace for our sakes? Her sake? For the sake of the children? I understand, I replied. 4 years. There is still time. Akhenaten frowned. Haven't you heard a word that I just said? Don't be competitive any more. It's unhealthy, and it makes me unhappy. Kia is a political matter. We must figure out how to maintain the peace. Kia, I muttered. Is that her name? Yes. Akhenaten, one more time, I suggested. No. His answer shocked me. He was refusing to give me another child. He had always declared that he wanted so many, and he refused me now? No? What do you mean, no? Just that. No. We agreed, Nefertiti. Our family will consist of you and I and our children, of whom we love. They are not tokens or furniture. They are our children. If you wish to sing to the ills of a harem wife in this behavior, I will not participate. How many chances do we have left, Akhenaten? I asked. None if I am to be dragged into a pony race. Why can't you understand that you are my family, and you drive my love, my passion, my inspirations? Kia is my political obligation. And, I looked away, if she has a son, then she has a son. You can't not see him. Not a prince of Egypt. That's right, he assured. He would be my child, and I would not refuse to see him. He deserves a father, Nefertiti. This matter is not his fault. I want you to be you, Nefertiti. That is all I have ever wanted from you. I am pleased to be with you. Was I feeling guilty? Jealousy was obviously a given, but I began to feel guilty and dirty. Was I really acting like those women? This was the man that I loved, and we had made a life together. I understand. That pulled me from my brooding. If it were me in your place, I would probably act the same, Nefertiti. But know that you have ultimate standing. My mother loves you dearly. I love you dearly. You are the most beautiful woman in Egypt. And why not? For Aten has made you, and it has made you for me. It would be total blasphemy and offensive to Aten if I were to cast you aside. Where do you always find the right words to say? You have to put everything into your dreams. You must defend what it is that you have now. If I am the son of a god, let me speak as one, a guiding light. I fell silent, turning to watch the sun set, taking in the warm breeze as it kissed over us. My warmth kept him protected from the cold. Out of love, I finally whispered to him. Love? Of what? A love of our special bond, and the love of a morality and high standards of value to defend myself, our daughters, the divine triad, and the non-compromisable nuclear family unit. Now you are talking like a politician, he chuckled. I'm not sure if I like it or not. Let's play. That statement seemed to catch him off guard. Come again? What was that? Let's be like when we were younger. Let's run down to the garden and chase each other through the floral array. Catch me over and over again. Let's be carefree once again and reinforce what we have together. Relive a better moment in our first year as husband and wife. Politician's tongue or not, I cannot ignore such a temptation, he replied, as I got up and tossed my crown at him, surprising him as he caught it and darted off in play, in which he soon and swiftly pursued.